Hello and welcome to the taster session for Criminology. So what is criminology? Well, criminology involves analysing illegal human behaviours and crime prevention methods. The field of criminology blends elements of psychology, law and sociology. As a criminologist, you'll explore many causes of criminal activity among the different groups of people. It combines and complements other social sciences and studies in humanities, and it's perfect for anyone wanting a career in law, the criminal justice system like the police and probation service, or for anyone just interested in all the topics that we study. Now, just to give you an overview of the course, this is a 2-year course, just like the other subjects at sixth form, and the qualification that you'll achieve at the end of the 2 years is a Level 3 Applied Diploma. We're graded A star to E, and we have the same UCAS points as an A level, making it a great first step into a career in this area. Now, across the 2 years, you'll study 4 different units. 2 of those will be completed in Year 12 and 2 in Year 13. We think that this is really beneficial to our students, as it means you get 2 units completed and out of the way in Year 12, so that you only have 2 units to learn for Year 13, and this gives you more time to concentrate on your other A levels in your other Year 2 summer exams. Another benefit to this course is that 2 of the units below are examined units, those highlighted in red, and the other 2 are internal assessments. What this means is that we receive a task from the exam board, and you're given time in class with your notes and your research to complete these. It's a very similar principle to that of GCSE Art, whereby you learn and prepare throughout the year and then complete and submit your task over a period of days. So in Year 12, the 2 units you'll study are Unit 1, Changing Awareness of Crime, and Unit 2, Criminological Theories. In Year 13, you'll complete Unit 3, Crime Scenes Courtroom, and Unit 4, Crime and Punishment. Now, it is worth noting that you do need to pass all of these units to gain the overall diploma. Now, the first task that I would like you to complete is to use the link on here to look at the specification for more details about the topics that we study. I want you to read the specification carefully and make a note below of the sections that you're particularly looking forward to learning about for each of the 4 units. So you can find the following units on the following pages. Pause now to do this activity. How will the course be taught? So lessons consist of taking notes, group discussions, watching relevant DVDs and documentaries, group work and PowerPoint presentations. Homework will consist of note making, wider reading, research, doing past exam questions, looking through PowerPoints and writing essay questions. It's expected that just like your other A-level subjects, you'll do 4 to 5 hours a week independent study, and the reading and watching list on the following page will help you gain a wider knowledge and broader framework in which to apply your knowledge. You'll be expected to engage with this as part of your independent work. Your progress will be reviewed on a regular basis and will provide feedback to let you know how you're doing. So here we have a reading list for criminology and a watching list for criminology. Now, this is not exhaustive. There are many more books and films, documentaries that you can watch, but these are just a few of them. So pause here now just to see if there's any that you've read or watched before, and if there's any that you would like to read or watch before taking part in the course. Now, in this taster session today, we're going to start by looking at Unit 1, and we're going to look at a typical lesson that we would teach in Unit 1. Just to go over the aim of Unit 1 is Changing Awareness of Crime. Now, this unit is a controlled assessment coursework unit, and the aim of your coursework will be to plan campaigns for change relating to crime. In this unit, you'll analyse different types of crime, which is what we're going to look at today. We're going to explain why certain crimes go unreported, explain the consequences of unreported crime, describe the links between crime and the media and the impact this has. We will look at crime statistics, compare and evaluate campaigns for change, and you'll eventually complete that controlled assessment at the end of the year once we've taught you the full aims of Unit 1. Now, today we're going to complete a typical lesson, like I've said, on the different types of crime. So I just want to make a content warning here that this presentation does talk about real examples of crime and the people who commit them. So if you feel that it might be particularly upsetting to you in any way, then you should speak to a member of the sixth form before taking part in the rest of this lesson. Potential students are always really keen to see what a controlled assessment looks like. So this is an example of a past controlled assessment for Unit 1. You'll get given a brief and then you'll get a series of tasks. Now for this one they had 8 hours dedicated class time to complete these tasks, and as I've said previously, you get your class notes and all the research that you've completed beforehand to take into your controlled assessment with you. Just pause here to read through the brief and the tasks below. So just another task here for you. What I would like you to do is pause and answer the 3 questions here. So I'd like you to make a list of 5 crimes that you've heard about recently. These could be in the local area, they could be nationally reported, or they could even be international crimes. For each of these crimes that you've listed, I want you to tell me which people are the victims of this type of crime and who are the perpetrators, so who are those committing it. The third thing I'd like you to do is answer this question: why do you think certain kinds of crime receive a lot of media attention? Pause now. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at different types of crime, and we're just going to have a really brief overview of these different types. So the first one we come to is white collar crime, and this can be defined as a crime committed by a person of respectability and high social status in the course of their occupation. Examples of white collar crime might be bribery and corruption in government and businesses, fiddling expenses, professional misconduct, fraud or embezzlement. Now 2 examples here of a real life crime is Lord Conrad Black. He was a millionaire and former owner of the Daily and Sunday Telegraph, and he was convicted and jailed for 6.5 years in the US for misusing his position to defraud shareholders of millions of dollars. We've also got a case of one GP making over £700,000 over 5 years by writing fake prescriptions. There are 3 main types of white collar crime, and that is organised, corporate and professional, that we're going to look at next. So, organised crime, and the definition of this is criminal activities that are planned and controlled by powerful groups and carried out on a large scale. Here you can see that we have 3 examples of organised crime. Starting with probably the most commonly known, the mafia. So who are they? Well, they're originally from Italy or Sicily and commonly found in the USA. The mafia are huge crime gangs who are usually related by family. They're defined as having a strict hierarchy with a boss at the top who heads the legal businesses and the capos or soldiers who commit the crimes. Each family has separate business dealings and they tend to stay out of each other's way. They commit crimes like extortion, which is threatening people so they give them money, protection rackets, drug dealing and smuggling, prostitution, illegal gambling, gang war, assassination and murder. Basically anything that will make them money. Next we have the triads, who are the most well-known organised crime group in China, Hong Kong and Macau. The number of people involved in organised crime in general has risen from around 100,000 in 1986 to around 1.5 million in 2000. New members are often recruited among the 120 million strong floating population of migrant workers, and they commit crimes such as people trafficking, drug smuggling, illegal gambling and extortion, murder, rape, robbery, kidnapping and assault. And lastly we have the Yakuza. Now the Yakuza is the world's largest organised crime group and has approximately 60,000 members. It's made up of 22 families that are often made up of smaller affiliated gangs, and out of the 22 families there's 3 main families. The Yakuza identify each other through tattoos, and they operate a huge portion of Japan's nightclubs, love hotels, gambling pits, casinos and prostitution services. Heroin and opium dealing, blackmail, child pornography, murder, sex slavery and human trafficking are also part of their crimes. But what about organised crime in the UK? Well, arguably, the Cray twins were the original English organised crime gangsters. They set up their gang known as the Firm across East London in the 1960s and ran many illegal businesses over the years, being responsible for murder, armed robbery, arson, protection rackets and assaults. They became celebrities themselves when they opened a West End nightclub, and here they mixed with politicians and celebrities at the time like Diana Dawes, Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland. You can find lots of documentaries on the Cray twins on YouTube, or watch the film Legend featuring Tom Hardy. Now, corporate crime refers to crimes committed either by a corporation, a business, or by individuals acting on behalf of a corporation or other businesses. So examples of corporate crime include paperwork and non-compliance, so not complying with health and safety regulations would be an example. Environmental or green crimes, like damaging the environment either deliberately or through negligence. Manufacturing offences, so producing unsafe products or counterfeit goods that might harm people. Labour law violations, not complying with worker health and safety policies, again leading to injuries. Unfair trade practices, so this is false advertising or price fixing, illegally obtaining information on rival businesses. And lastly, we have financial offences, so this could be tax evasion or concealment of losses or debts. So what are some examples of corporate crime? Well, in 1984 we had the Bhopal disaster. This happened in India and it was the worst industrial tragedy in history, with an estimated 25,000 people killed as a result. It was a chemical factory that started leaking a deadly gas due to a faulty valve. This factory was located next to an intensely overcrowded slum and 500,000 people were exposed to this gas. The gas caused people's lungs to fill up with fluid and most died from cardiac arrest or respiratory failure. We also have the thalidomide cases. Now, thalidomide was a drug developed by the company Chemi Gruthenthal, but it was not adequately tested. It was given to pregnant women in the 1950s to combat morning sickness. However, it resulted in 10,000 infants being born with deformed limbs. There were delays in withdrawing the drug from the market, and eventually no one was ever prosecuted after investigations. So, professional crime. The definition of this is people for whom crime is their permanent occupation and a primary source of income. And examples include major drug dealers, bank robbers, assassins, human traffickers and prostitution. Next we have moral crime. Some crimes are committed because people have moral objections to laws. These cases are often on controversial or moral topics. Now, an example of this is Nelson Mandela. He was one of the world's most celebrated statesmen who led the struggle against the apartheid in South Africa. In working to free his country from racial division, he essentially led a peaceful revolution. However, he was found guilty of treason, amongst other things, and spent 25 years in prison. He was released in 1990, and in 1994 he was elected as the first president of a democratic South Africa. Now I'd like you to answer the following questions that are on the slide. So, which laws would you change if you could? Is it acceptable to break the law if that law is bad or unjust? Give reasons for your answer. Pause now. In contrast to moral crime, we have immoral crime. This is a phrase used in criminal law to describe the actions that go against the morals of society. Crimes involving moral turpitude have an inherent quality of vileness, depravity or evil, and they go against the individuals or society in general. So examples of this crime include rape, paedophilia, prostitution, slavery, incest, bestiality and torture. We can certainly include serial killers under the umbrella of moral crime, but one of the most famous examples of a moral crime is that of Josef Fritzl. So in 2008, a woman named Elizabeth Fritzl told police in Austria that she'd been held captive for 24 years by her father, Josef. He had assaulted her, sexually abused and raped her numerous times during her imprisonment inside a concealed area in the basement of the family home. The abuse by Elizabeth's father resulted in the birth of 7 children. 3 of them remained in captivity with their mother. 1 had died just days after birth at the hands of Joseph, who disposed of his body in an incinerator, and the other 3 were brought up by Fritzl and his wife Rosemarie, having been reported as abandoned children. So if we go back to the idea of serial killers completing this immoral crime, just a couple of questions for you. How many active serial killers do you think there are in the UK at any one time? Shout out your answer now. So research indicates that there's about 2 at any one time in the UK. But what about the USA? Again, shout out your answer now. And again, research indicates that there's about 30 to 50 serial killers active in the USA at any one time. State crime. So when we talk about a state, we mean a country or its government, and the definition of state crime is an activity or failures to act that break the state's own criminal law or public international law. Now, examples of state crimes include the torture and illegal treatment and punishment of citizens, corruption, assassination and targeted killing, war crimes, genocide, and state-sponsored terrorism. Some of the most famous state crimes include the Holocaust, where Nazis killed 6 million Jews, the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, where over 500 villagers were killed by US troops, and the Khmer Rouge incident in Cambodia that killed 1.2 million people. Modern leaders accused of state and war crimes include Charles Taylor, who was president of Liberia. He was convicted of supporting brutal rebels in Sierra Leone in exchange for blood diamonds. We have Omar al-Bashir, president of Sudan, accused of genocide during the Darfur conflict, where 300,000 people died. Colonel Gaddafi, head of Libya. His regime is accused of murdering prisoners of war and civilians, torture and murder of soldiers, and looting. And then we have General Pinochet, president of Chile, accused of torture and murder. Domestic abuse is not just physical abuse. It also includes emotional and psychological abuse, coercive control, and isolating people. Domestic violence is still largely a hidden crime, and those who have experienced abuse from a partner or ex-partner will often try to keep it from their families, friends, or authorities. Now, there are a number of reasons why this might be the case. They may be ashamed of what has happened. They may feel that they were to blame. They may love their partner and not want them to be criticised or punished for what they did. They might think it was a one-off event and it won't happen again. Or they may be frightened that if they tell someone about it, their partner will find out, they'll be in danger of further and perhaps more serious violence. Now, did you know that over 2 women per week are killed by current or ex-partners, and that 1 in 4 women in the UK will experience domestic violence in their lifetime? But it's not just women. More than ever before, men are also coming forward as victims of domestic abuse. Hate crime, sometimes called bias crime, is very difficult to define, and this is usually because it involves a group of crimes together. Now, the person being targeted is a victim specifically because of one of their characteristics, which could be ethnicity, religion, sexuality, or even disability. Different forms of hate crime include physical assault, damage to property, offensive graffiti and arson, threat of attack including offensive letters, abusive or obscene telephone calls, hanging around in intimidating groups, and unfounded malicious complaints. There could be verbal abuse, insults or harassment, offensive leaflets and posters, abusive gestures, the dumping of rubbish outside homes or through letterbox, and bullying at school or in the workplace. Now, an example of a hate crime is the murder of Stephen Lawrence in 1993. Stephen was a black British teenager from South East London who had murdered in a racially motivated attack while waiting for a bus. The case and conviction of Stephen's murderers was all over the media because of the failings of the police, who were accused of institutional racism. After long legal cases, investigations and independent inquiries, 2 of Stephen's attackers were convicted in 2012, and the inquiry into racism in the police force meant important changes were also made so that this would not happen again. Now, the last crime we're going to introduce today is technological crime, and I would like you to find out about this type yourselves. So your final task will be to complete some research and find me a definition of this type of crime. I'd like you to identify and explain some examples of different technological crimes. And finally, I'd like you to find a real-life example of a technological crime that has taken place. Now, that's the end of today's session. So after what we've done today, you should be able to identify types of crime, provide examples of those crimes, give a real-life example of someone who has committed that crime. When we come to look at types of crime in September, we'll be taking each in turn and taking part in various different activities, including research, group discussions, watching documentaries and videos to really understand who commits that type of crime and the features of those crimes. All this will be so that you can build up your knowledge, build up your written notes in preparation for that final internal assessment. So thank you for joining me on this taster session today. If you have any further questions, you can contact one of us below. My email is at the top. We've got Miss Bidder's email, or we've got the head of department, Mrs. Smith. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you on the course in September.